All right. So thank you all for joining. Today we're going to talk through World Business Chicago's request for candidates for hospitality and live events vendors. This is a vendor open call, and we'll go into a little bit more detail about what that means later. But we appreciate you joining, and feel free to include additional questions in the chat throughout this. We'll make sure to address them all at the end. Next slide, please. So a little bit more background on World Business Chicago. WBC is Chicago's public-private economic development agency. That means that they're really focused on job creation and business expansion or relocation here within Chicago. The WBC has a handful of key sectors which are focused on manufacturing, transportation, distribution, and logistics, fintech, food and agriculture, and am I forgetting the last one? Healthcare and life sciences. So that's not the only sectors that we support, but these are ones that have high growth and momentum within Chicago, and actually will be the bulk of the focus for a lot of the events that we'll be discussing throughout this presentation. One of the key tenets of WBC is that last bullet point. Our vision is to ensure that all Chicagoans prosper and participate in the economic growth of our city. And that's part of why we're here today. We want to make sure that there is equitable distribution of funds and growth throughout the city, and that all businesses, no matter where they're located within the city of Chicago, have a chance to be involved in some of the events that are happening through World Business Chicago and gain access to additional opportunities with the city of Chicago. So we're really hoping to get a wide array of different businesses with diverse founders and leaders from all different parts of the city. The bulk of WBC's events happen in the core business district, so they happen downtown, but we are looking for vendors from neighborhoods and hoping to give them more access to downtown venues. Next slide, please. So this will get into a little bit about what we're hoping to achieve over the next few years and why we're putting out this call for vendors. So as I mentioned, World Business Chicago focuses on supporting Chicago's high growth sectors. A lot of this happens through events and convenings with business leaders, with workforce organizations, nonprofits, community development organizations, to really highlight Chicago's assets and how we can be a better, more welcoming place for all organizations. Through these convenings, WBC is hoping to provide opportunities to small and local live events vendors who are interested in working some corporate events. So you don't have to have worked corporate events in the past. We're just looking for a willingness to get involved, to work with us, and to provide some of the necessary requirements that come with a lot of these larger scale corporate events. So that includes things like food, audiovisual, staffing, drinks, really anything that you can think of for live events. One of the things that we're particularly looking for are venues, venues that are willing to host new restaurants that don't have strict requirements around who can come into their space, because we're hoping to create new opportunities for businesses that may not have had access to these spaces in the past. So as I mentioned, this is the request for candidates. So right now we're just searching for organizations that are willing to work with World Business Chicago and the city to help staff some of these events. As I mentioned, we're focused on diversity, so we really want to have a broad reaching and diverse pool of vendors that we can draw from. We'd love businesses that have different types of food, that can do things in a different way, and that are located across the city. We're also looking for businesses that may have been particularly harmed or disproportionately harmed during COVID. So part of our goal for getting events back in person is to recover from the pandemic, when we had things virtually and when a lot of businesses, particularly ones in the live event space and the restaurant and hospitality business, were particularly harmed. So if you feel as though you fit these categories, we encourage you to apply. We're looking at all applications and appreciate the time that you spent here to chat with us today. All right, Nicolette, I'll turn it over to you for some more specifics.
Yeah, so Leah kind of touched on these already, but just to summarize, we're looking for hospitality and live events businesses. We listed a few examples here, are located in the city of Chicago. If you're not located in the city of Chicago and more Chicagoland, we still encourage you to apply. We just might not be able to work with you on certain events if that's a stipulation. If for the event we need to work with somebody in the city of Chicago. And then we are also looking for small businesses, which would mean businesses with under 500 employees. And then also, because a large focus is on COVID recovery assistance, ideally for you to have existed, or not ideally, but for you to have existed before March 12th of 2020. All right, so I'm going to go through our website. Our website is worldbusinesschicago.com/open call. So at this page, you'll be able to find all the information that's relevant to this open call. And then you can also email us at this email here, vendors@worldbusinesschicago.com, if you have any specific questions. All right, so I will go through our website. So this is what our webpage looks like. It goes through briefly kind of our purpose, our goals of what we're trying to do with this open call. This full RFC is the full document that goes through the background information of World Business Chicago and this open call, our objectives and scope of services. And that just means examples of what kinds of things we would expect from you. So here it walks through different tiers of sizes of events. So tier 1 would be a workshop of about 10 people with light snacks or drinks. Tier 2 would be a reception of 50 people, for example, with past hors d'oeuvres or a full meal. Tier 3 is a party or a larger convention with 200 people. So you don't need to be able to service all of these events, but these are just, general tiers of sizes or types of events that we would want to be able to hold. Yes, and then we would also be looking for people, if you have experience coordinating with other events businesses, like coordinating, like a catering company coordinating with a staffing agency, or an audio company coordinating with a production agency, ability to keep records, and then if you have any experience with live broadcasting or filming events, that's helpful as well. And then the scope of services, this just goes through more specifically for whatever type of vendor you might be, some examples of the types of services that we would want or need. All right, and then we do also have these flyers in English and Spanish that just kind of summarize what we're looking for as well. If you want to post this anywhere or share with anybody who you think might be interested as well. And then
one thing to cut in, I just wanted to reiterate, the qualifications and the scope of services that Nicolette walked through is very detailed. If you don't satisfy all of those, that is completely fine. We still encourage you to apply. Just indicate what you can and can't do, and that's totally fine.
Yes. All right. So to apply, you'll go down to this how to apply section, click this button. And it is in a Google form format. The permission should be set up, so you should be able to apply, but if you're not able to, you should get a button that says request access. Just go ahead and click request access, and then I can email you a link to fill this out. Cool, so I'll go through and kind of show you what it looks like as you fill this out. So it'll ask you for your email. It'll ask you to put in your company name, the description, your mission, just kind of a general about your company, some contact information. If you have a website or any social media channels that we can see, your team makeup or any company demographics. And also if you have any specific measures or commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion, like a statement or plans around that. And then, like I kind of talked about those tiers before, you'll be able to select which tiers you are able to serve. Like smaller restaurants might be capable of doing like tier 1 and tier 2. Maybe like a full service catering company would be more tier 3, but just select whichever ones apply to you. And then also select whatever services you're able to provide. There's an other box you can type in if there's a service that you do that's events related that I didn't list here. And then we would ask if you have any client references that you're able to provide us with their contact information. And then here's an opportunity for you to upload any documents that might be able to more clearly illustrate the types of work that you're able to do or that you've done in the past. And then just a general range of the cost of services. Obviously, if once we kind of decide to work with you on a specific event, there will be more detail about what our budget is and that kind of stuff, but just a general range works here. And then the next section is technical requirements, just disclosing if you have any conflicts of interest, and then just ensuring that you meet the eligibility requirements that we already talked about. And then lastly is just letting us know where you heard about this open call, just so we can know what are good ways to continue to circulate this. So that is what it looks like to go through the application form. Cool. Yeah. So like we went through it, we'll talk about company background, the types of services you can provide, some examples, and then just the technical requirements. Cool. And then now Leah's going to talk a little bit about how we're going to evaluate these submissions and then how we decide if we'd work with you.
Yes, thank you so much. So as I mentioned, we'll really be evaluating on a case-by-case basis. We're looking for relatively complete applications. We're looking for businesses that have had some experience, either being a restaurant in the past or hosting events in the past, and we're also looking for a thoughtful description and some insight into how you've done your work in the past. Once you sort of go through that first round of evaluation process, where we ensure the application is complete, you fit all of the requirements, and you've done some thoughtful work in the past, we'll put you into World Business Chicago's vendor pool. That does not mean you're guaranteed a contract with WBC. That simply means that when we have an event, we go to that pool first, and we'll put out a call to the vendors in that pool to see what their quotes would be and if there's a willingness to participate in the given event. So I think the next slide might have some more information on that process. So when WBC has an event, we will contact the businesses that are in the vendor pool, reach out and provide some more specific details around the event, such as where it is, what the size is, what the intended audience is, and then we'll request a more detailed bid around how much it might cost for that specific event. Internally, we will evaluate the quotes across multiple vendors that were in the vendor pool for the quality of submission. So for this specific event, how much detail did you provide us? How much explanation did you provide on what you would be able to give for the event, past performance? So have you done good work in the past? What do your reviews look like online? If we worked with you in the past, that's always beneficial. And that will happen sort of as we do more and more events. Diversity and social equity. So are you a women or minority owned business? You do not need to be WB or MB certified, but do you have some sustainability metrics? Are you located in one of the neighborhoods in Chicago? Do you bring a fresh perspective, a different type of cuisine, or something that we haven't done or seen before? And then just cost for reasonableness. We're not necessarily looking for the lowest cost. We're really looking for a more holistic assessment. But we do need to make sure that we're spending, as we have money from the city and money from the federal government, that we're spending that responsibly. So we went through that pretty quickly. Are there any specific questions? Otherwise, I think Nicolette also has some questions that might come up frequently, some FAQs, but I'll leave this open. Any questions you all can put in the chat or the Q&A box.
Cool, and I can just start talking through some FAQs while you all put those in the chat. So in terms of timeline, these submissions, we're reviewing them on a rolling basis. We encourage you to get your submission in as soon as possible, just so you can be considered for events as soon as possible. But it's a rolling admission or rolling submission. So yeah, so feel free to submit whenever. Feel free to pass along as you hear about other people that might be interested. Always accepting submissions. And then another question that you all might have is why do we have these requirements or the qualifications that we listed out? Some of our events will be federal funded, and because of the federal grants that we receive, they come with some of those restrictions. So if you're not eligible based on those requirements, just indicate that in your application. We might still be able to work with you for some events. We just have to look at how that event will be paid for specifically. Another question is, how many events do we do? Typically WBC does at least 2 to 3 events, often more, and they really range in size. Like we do, like I mentioned before, things like small boardroom meetings with 10 or so attendees, all the way up to larger conventions or gatherings. So all kinds of sizes of events. Yeah, like I said, we do at least 2 to 3 a month, but usually more. And we are pretty busy during the summer months as well. Yeah, so I think those are most of the questions that we kind of anticipated that people might have. But yeah, feel free to type any more questions in if I didn't answer any.
We have a relatively small group, so don't be shy. Please share anything that might be on your mind. Okay, looks like there may not be any questions. You can email Nicolette and I after this as well if anything comes up. But oh, here we go. How would a theater fit into the scope of your businesses? That's a great question. So as I mentioned, we're looking for venues, and theaters would be wonderful venues for us to rent out. So I think that is one thing where we definitely need more venues. So I would really encourage you to apply, particularly if you're willing to sort of accept multiple different food vendors within your space. If you have a specific vendor that you need to use, that's fine. But if you're willing to use local businesses and local restaurants, that would be a huge help to us. Does that answer your question? Perfect, great, thank you. Anything else? Yeah, if you have specific questions around how your business might fit in or whether or not you might be eligible, happy to address those now because we do only have a couple of you on the call. Oh, I see something in the Q&A. Would photography, videography also be needed? Yes, absolutely. We do need photography and videography. So please do apply. Also, if you all have other businesses that you work with for events, so for instance, the theater, videographer, if there's a restaurant that you see that comes up a lot, if there's an AV system that or a team that you've worked with in the past that you really like, we encourage you to send them that flyer because we really are trying to get as many businesses. Ooh, close to 4,000 people, I don't think we would fill the space. We would probably have much smaller events. I'd say the max size of an event we have is about 600. I don't know if there's a way to sort of court off certain sections of the theater or do something in the lobby. But no, I don't anticipate any events that would be that large in scale at this point. If we one day do host a 4,000 person event, though, I will be sure to keep in touch, but our events tend to be a little bit smaller than that. Anything else? All right, it looks like we don't have too much else. So this will be recorded and posted, and we are probably going to have another one of these since we have a rolling application in a couple months. So feel free to come back. Feel free to please email questions along the way. We really want to be as flexible as possible to work with local businesses and neighborhood vendors. So if there's anything that is causing confusion or that gives you pause, don't hesitate to ask. Nicolette, anything to add?
I don't think so. Thank you all so much for your time and for coming to watch this. And thank you for hopefully spreading the word to other businesses that you all work with.
Thank you. Bye.